I think anyone that wears glasses can agree. The most annoying thing about glasses is that they get smudged. Can't stand that. Today was not nearly as productive as I wanted it to be, but then again, what day has been? So I feel pretty good so far. Here's a weird thing. So after yesterday's whole thing with finding out that I wasn't going to be doing NakaCon, I thought, it probably doesn't matter, but I should reply to the email. So I did. I just simply sent back, hey, thank you for your consideration and all of that. And I'm hoping that the show will be amazing and that it'll be off to a great start this year. And that there'll be, my cat is wanting again on video, that it's going to, what do you need? Oh my God, you're getting chubby. This is my chubby cat. Okay, I'm just gonna hold her and do the video then. My contrast is gonna be all fucked up on the video. I simply said thank you for the consideration and all that, and I said that I was gonna go ahead and attend the show if I could make it. I was gonna go for at least one day or two, or hopefully the whole weekend, just kind of experience it. I'd never done that before, so hopefully that'll be pretty cool. She's making little biscuits. Look at my Luna making biscuits. You know what she's looking at? She's looking at the TIE fighters that are on the ceiling above me, and she wants to smack them all the time when I pick her up. And if I stand up, she tries to smack them around, which is probably not the best thing in the world. Can I lay you over here, ma'am? Ma'am. I know. I'll cuddle you here in a minute. Sometimes I'm all too aware of how much time goes by and how in an instant, I could not have them here. That was the case with my cat Zero and Kubo, and yeah, we've all been there. If you have one pets, that is. And of course that goes toward people too. I don't mean to take that out. So let me show you guys something fun I saw today. Every once in a while I'll go and, because my way of dealing with things, kind of weird. I will go and just wander around. I just do kind of a shopping sort of thing. And it's more window shopping than anything. But I found this hilarious. This is a book cover. I haven't had one of these in years. And I picked it up. It's, superhero based. But it's 75 cents. So I was like, damn, that's nice. I'm going to pick the sketchbook that I'm going to put it on, and then it just stays there. I don't know. Sometimes dumb things like that just make me happy. It's not dumb. I shouldn't say it's dumb. I should say it's helpful, because it is. I have seen, sometimes the other thing I was thinking about today too was I have been trying to cut back from social media. I really have. And in some ways, inadvertently, because I've been doing this stuff and trying to get artwork finished. And I'm still struggling with the whole time management thing, but it's going to get better. I got positive vibes on that for myself. On a good side, I woke up this morning and for some reason, I popped out of bed, and what I hate is anytime after the age of 30, you start thinking, and beyond. And so I have no idea what the fucking future is going to be like for me, but I wake up and I'm like, do I have a headache? Do I have a sinus infection? Or am I just old and tired? And I feel that way. I woke up, I was like, oh shit, what's wrong? And it's the strangest thing. I remember distinctly when I was younger that, I could wake up in bed and I'd be like a contortionist or something. And I'd be like, that was the greatest sleep of my life. And, there's been like anyone, as we get older, you're concerned with your health and with other aspects happening and things. And you're thinking to yourself like, oh God, what is this going to look like? What's happening? And in lieu of that, I woke up this morning and I was off to the races. I was like, I've got errands to run today. I had to go pick up a whole bunch of stuff for the house, just things that I needed, just various assorted things. And then I was like, I need a few groceries. There's a few other things I needed to get. Now, part of me was like, okay, am I ignoring or misdirecting myself from the other things I needed to do? But I was like, no, and I'd much rather get this done now before other people were out and about. It's still during the week. So the advantage of being able to work from home, is the same that it is for everybody else, is that you can get out during the day and get things accomplished. So I did all that, and I got a good amount of washing. I'm still washing laundry and doing stuff right now as I'm doing this. And I was really happy. I was like, I found some joy today in doing dishes again. Just some things like that that just had been out of my wheelhouse for a few days, for actually a few months, if I'm going to be honest. But it's been off and on. And I don't know. Some of it was, there's this mushroom coffee that I've been using. It's not really a coffee. It's based on mushroom, and supposedly, it's got different kinds like lion's mane, turkey tail, some other stuff like that in there, like four or five major ones. And I do know what's in there. I just don't remember the names right off the top of my head. It seemed to be doing something. I always take kind of a grain of salt aspect with that sort of thing. Like, well, it could be a placebo effect, but it seems to be helping. I would also stop. There's something else I do too. Whenever I start feeling down, I will stop listening to music that has a lot of lyrics in it, and I will listen to movie scores or soundtracks. Anything that has stuff like that. It gets me pumped. It gets me jazzed. I used to listen to that when I was younger and I'd work out. It was one of the few reasons I really wanted a Walkman, was because, I didn't always want to hear, even though like it was kind of cool, I didn't want to always hear a lot of stuff that was at the high school gym. The teacher I had did allow us to play music, but it wasn't always to my liking. It's not that I didn't like heavy metal or stuff like that. I loved it, but it wasn't always my jam to work out to. I had just discovered Bach and a lot of those people at that time, and a lot of great composers, including, modern day ones like Hans Zimmerman and stuff like that. And so I really dug working out to that. I was listening to NPR's classical, all this sort of thing. And I think I'd always been that way. My uncle, the one that I used to go to flea markets with and do that sort of stuff with, I talked about that in an earlier entry. He was the first one that introduced me to, I think it was Boston Pops, which was, the classical performances. And I remember at that moment being bored out of my mind, but if he was alive today, I'd say, dude, thank you so much for that. And I carry that onward now, just this appreciation of classical music and all those other things. I remember he was so enthusiastic about it. We were in my grandmother's house, and he's like, I want you to hear something. And so we sat down. Now that was about the same time that I found a tape. And I've always wanted to, do something with that. But the same day that I found this tape, I got kind of a double lesson. I found this tape from Creedence Clearwater Revival. It was an epiphany. I'd never heard anything like that. I'd heard the music maybe in passing. I didn't know who the band was. And to find this cassette that was... So, to give you guys some understanding why this was such a weird thing, was because the house that my grandmother had moved into was sort of a prefab mobile home sort of thing. And it had previous people's stuff in there. Fast forward to some therapy bullshit on this. A lot of my grandmother's stuff was in there when she passed away, and my uncle rented that out to some people that God knows what the fuck happened to all the memories, pictures, things we had in there. They may have just been thrown away. The people may have just used them, but it was all my grandmother's shit. That's just a fucking horror show. That's a whole nother thing that I want to get into in a different video about like family legacy and stuff again, because that is something that I think about all the time. So he introduced me, I find this cassette. I didn't really show anyone that thing, but I had this little, I know I have it around here somewhere. I managed to save this one cassette player. It's like a single, it's got a single speaker, it plays cassette, and it records. And that one came in really handy. I'm going to take a small path over to the side. When my father was stationed overseas in Korea, I got these cheap, because I didn't, my mom would give me a little, not allowance, but if you want something, you can do this. So I would get these little, I remember they were green and white and black tapes. I think they may have been Memorex, but I don't even think they were that nice. But I remember it said CR90, so they were 90-minute tapes, 45 minutes on each side. And I just talked. I had my brother on there, I had my sister on there, and I really want to find them again. And I know my mom and dad have one or two of them, but it's crazy to think that those tapes are me when I was in 6th and 7th grade. No, 7th and 8th grade. And it's me just talking on and on to my dad. Because even though I didn't have the greatest relationship with my father, when he was overseas, I missed him. I didn't have anyone there to talk to about stuff I was going through. My mom, yes, but it was just different, right? I just kind of wanted my dad there. And so I think I sent 2 or 3 tapes to him. And I got my mom on there. I think I even got my grandma, if I'm sure. I'm not totally certain. I hope I did. I don't know if I did. I don't think I did. And so, yeah, that was my very first time ever doing recording in a fashion similar to this, just getting my thoughts down. So every day, I think I went on for about 15, 16 days until I ran out of tape on the first one. I was like so excited. I was like, let's send this to Dad. Let's send this to Dad. So every couple of weeks we'd send something to Dad just so that he knew that his family was thinking about him. And so that's what we did. And that was a very bittersweet and weird time living with my grandmother and that sort of thing. But I'll go into that more as well too. God, I'm just compiling like a list of subjects of things that I want to talk about and think about for myself. But I know that sometimes whenever people are away for a long time, we all know that, the smallest thing can make the biggest difference. And considering he was all the way on the other side of the world, in South Korea, and, we were growing up. And the weird part was that he was worried when he came back that my brother wasn't going to remember him, because my brother was so young. He was just out of diapers at that time. And I wanted something for my brother to go, to tell my brother, hey, we're doing a recording. And it's the first time my brother heard his voice. It's like, it was just such a very bizarre moment, just a very cool mid-'80s sort of moment. And and much to my surprise, Mom and Dad kept those. I didn't know what happened to them. I figured they'd been thrown away or something had happened to them. But Dad keeps them in his bedroom. He told me this one time. I've never seen them, but I guess every great once in a while he pulls them out and he still has a tape player in his current truck and he'll listen to it. I'm always worried it's going to fall apart, and so there's a part of me that's like, the archivist in me wants to be able to digitize it before it's too late, that sort of thing, just to have it. Because I think it would be a really interesting thing, because I know I talked about what I thought about art, what I wanted to be. That would be such a crazy comparison point to this point in my life right now and what it might be if I'm lucky enough to live, 30, 40 more years or so, and then have that wide spectrum in there. A lot of times I often think I would love to submit that as an art project or as an art exhibition or something. I have no idea if anyone would even give a shit, but I think it would be a pretty bizarre thing to do something like that. Just an average person's life. So, an average artist's life. So getting back to the whole classical pops thing and the Creedence Clearwater Revival. I had my little tape player, so I remember loading the tape in there. I didn't get a chance to listen to it, but one of the things that happened was that when he came over, he was like, well, let's go sit down and just listen to some. So we listened to it for about an hour or so, and I really tried listening to it, but I didn't really know how to get into classical at first. Like, I remember listening to it and I was like, well, this is different. It sounds like a lot of movie music is what I kept calling it, which was not inaccurate. But he was the first one to say, when you listen to it, think about all the different musicians that have to come together to create this pattern of sound, this blanket pulled from a bunch of different parts together, all working in unison, coming together, sewn together by the notes that are all playing around with each other. And I loved how he described it. And I didn't know enough to run the records, and I think my mom inherited a few of his records after he passed. And I've always meant to go back and listen to them again, but I have found a lot of the things that he let me listen to on YouTube, and that was fun. And over the years, that memory kept coming back. So every single time movies came out, I always looked for new scores and stuff. I've discovered new composers, new musical compilations that have just been wonderful, and I've even looked into like chamber music and all these things, and it really opened up a lot of stuff for me. Well, at that exact same time, after we got done listening later that night, I scrounged around and I found, seriously, those old school gigantic headphones. They're not too dissimilar. Actually, the ones that I use for streaming, well, not streaming, but for, I mean, these are your basic gamer ones here, right? And I love these big ass things like that. They remind me of the ones from the 70s and the 80s. Very WKRP in Cincinnati like. And so I had a big old pair that I found. I had this coiled cord that went on forever, like a good 10 feet or so, something like that. And I couldn't find the adapter. And somehow, I think we either went to HEB, which was the grocery store. And I remember in that same shopping center, we went over to... See, this is what's really weird. Like, I remember that we would go shopping, but my mom didn't drive, and neither did my grandmother. And so my dad's car, which is a Renault Alliance, was parked out in the area between my grandmother's house and the backfield area whenever we first stayed there. And then this next time that we went back and we stayed with my grandmother the second time, that was for a visit. And okay, so I'm remembering now, man, this is like going back down memory lane. I remember these things. At that time, my dad was there, but he always liked to go drink, so he'd just go do shit. But I remember there were still times he had to work and do other stuff like that because he was still in the military doing something in that area. Anyway, oh, okay. So my dad did drive us to the grocery store that time, and then we were only visiting for a while that particular time when I first came across this stuff. And I remembered going, and that was the very first time I ever remember seeing a Radio Shack. And I was like, oh, that's cool. This so crazy. So many loves of mine happened at this time. And I was like, and I saw this at Radio Shack. I'm like, well, radio, bound to have the same plugs and things like that. Ever since I was little, I would take shit apart. I noticed how certain components fit within certain things, and I was fascinated by transistors and resistors and all these different things. I didn't know much about them, and I would try and find books on them if I could when I was at bookstores or whatever, the few rare times that I went to things like that. But there was something about Radio Shack that I was like, I want to go see that. Now, this is old school Radio Shack. So, I mean, I think they had a lot of, like, I walked in and it must have been like what Harry Potter felt like when he walked into, you know, like any of the places in Diagon Alley. It just like, oh my God. And I walked in and I remember thinking to myself, like, surely they know what I need. And so my dad was with me and he's kind of looking around. He's like, well, he knows what he wants. He's doing something. And so I remember that that there were two plugs on the side of my little recorder. If memory serves me right, I know I've got it around here somewhere, so I should pull that damn thing out and show you guys. But I remember that it had these two little plugs on the side, and one was for headphones. And then the other one, although it was weird because I think it said headphone because it was a single speaker, so I think it only recorded in mono. I could be wrong on that. And then, but I think that's accurate. And then the other one said mic, so it was clearly a recording device to be able to hold by a handle, and then you could put a microphone out there. And the one thing that I remember from there was when I walked in, I was being overwhelmed. I'm like, this is the coolest store I've ever been in. And I remember seeing things I didn't understand. I remember seeing like weird screwdrivers and tools, stuff that didn't look anything like what my father, my uncle, or my grandparents owned. Just bizarre things, right? They might as well have been like ancient artifacts from an alien world. I just didn't know what they were. And my mind was blown. It's probably one of the reasons why I have an obsession with tools, and why even earlier I was like checking out tools, and I was like, oh my God, look at these new Metabo things. And I did like that. And in my head, I heard Tim Allen's voice in Toy Story 2 whenever he found the Buzz Lightyear aisle, and he finds the new belt that comes with the new releases of Buzz Lightyear, and he whistles and he goes, I could use one of those. And I felt like that. That saying will always go through my head. And I went up to the counter because, at that point in time, I think I still had some chutzpah in me. And I went up and, although I was shy, I was like, I knew what I wanted. And I knew my dad wasn't going to know what I was talking about. So, because he said, what do you need? And I said, I just need this thing that makes things go. I don't think they make anything like that. I'm like, I'm almost certain they would. Like, why wouldn't they? And it just in my head back then, even as a kid, I was like, well, why wouldn't they? So I thought, what's it going to hurt to ask? But I was raised very much in a family where you never asked about something unless you had the intention of purchasing or you knew what the fuck you were talking about, because that was just embarrassing. I don't know if that's a Hispanic culture thing. I don't know if it's just a 1950. I have no fucking clue, but my family was very much like that. So nowadays, I've evolved into somebody who I'm just going to fucking say it. I accurately and to the point, but often in a much nicer way than most people would if I can. In this case, it was simply asking for an adapter. So what I was going from was this larger adapter. I was like, okay, and I remember thinking, well, I got to measure it, and I couldn't get a real good measure on it, but it was a 1/4 inch, and I needed it to go down to, what is that, an eighth? No, it's a fourth. No, it's a 1/4 to basically a guitar jack sized one to go down to the kind that goes into a standard headphone jack, which is like a 3.5 millimeter or whatever that is. But I didn't know any of those measurements at that point in time. And even now, I don't remember the numbers. I just know how they fit. And I've got components out the ass behind me for all kinds of audio things. And I was shocked. He came back up and goes, yeah, be 10 cents. He's like, is that all you need? You need any extension cords? I'm like, and of course, I wanted everything. My dad's like, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. So he slaps down $1. He got back, like a couple cents or whatever, I think tax was like 2 cents. I don't know what it was. The guy just was like, no, it's cash. Don't worry about it. Oh, that's right. It was cash. That was the first time I saw somebody not take tax. This is like, okay, here we go. And that was really cool. And I was so excited. I had a little bag and I was looking at him like, this is the future. Freaking obsessed with it. And it's not, this is no bullshit. I actually have it. I do have that component. It's in one of the different storage bins back here. But I know, because I'm such an anal retentive little bastard, even at that age, that I was like, I made sure that when I used it, I didn't fuck it up or anything else like that. And I was obsessed with why were there multiple, why does this one have one large black band at the front and why does this one have 2 bands? And then it was the same question I had years later whenever I got an iPhone jack or a data jack for my iPod. And I was like, why does that have 3 rings on it? I always question that sort of stuff. So the point is, that's how I ended up listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival. And now that I'm thinking about it, I do remember that it was mono. But when it came out, because he asked me, do you have a mono or do you have a stereo device? And I said, it's got 1 speaker on it. And I described the thing. Goes, okay, yeah, that's probably mono. He's like, if you want, there is this way where you can split the mono signal and it'll go stereo. And I distinctly remember that. Although I've talked to people and they said, no, that didn't. I was like, no, that had to have happened. Audio recording has always been way ahead of its time. This is mid-'80s. This is like fucking 1943. And so I remember thinking that, but I think it was a little bit more expensive, and I didn't want to push my luck because I was just glad that I managed to get into this building that I never ended up going back to. And so when I got back, I remember plugging that thing in, and I remember using it to listen, and it was crazy. It was really weird because I was trying to figure out how to listen to it in my ear, but at the same time, because it sounded different coming out of the speaker that was in the recorder, and I would listen to it, and I was like, this is crazy. And so I never forgot that, and it was just everything about it, and I was like, I can't wait to listen to this where I can hear it in both ears. That was really, it always felt like, I don't know why, but it always felt like this ear was heavier because all the sound was coming out this side. It was such a fucking weird, it was a really weird moment. As a kid, I love shit like that when you're a kid, because I think our physicality changes as we get older. We have to be more stoic and like, oh no, it sounds fine. But in my head, I remember because of the bass and the way the vocals sounded and the guitar playing, everything, and like, I don't know if it was Fortunate Son or what it was that was like my ears kind of beat this way, and I kept walking around like this, like I actually had some fucking rhythm in my life, and that's just such a great a great and weirdly dumb memory that I love to this day. It's it's um it's something that made me into a massive music lover, and I love whenever I discover bands to this day. In fact, there's a link down below. They're a band that was from Texas that is now in Los Angeles, and they're called Cowboy Destroy. I stumbled across them on TikTok and was like, what the fuck is this? If you like this is the best description I can think of. If you love like a grunge aesthetic with, like, if you took bands like, I'm trying to think here, maybe a little bit of Green River Band thrown in with the Breeders, thrown in with a little bit of the attitude of Mother Love Bone, with, God, I'm trying to think, a lot of the acid rock and fuzz band type sounds. It's like, and it's almost got, although it's not, I don't want to use this comparison because, like, if you use anything from Siamese Dream from Smashing Pumpkins, you're talking about a fairly overproduced wall of sound that is like multiple layered guitars, which, don't get me wrong, Siamese Dream is fucking phenomenal. But if I'm right on this, if I remember this from reading this from Rip Magazine, there's a lot of different layers to it, and there's a very distinct sound that Billy Corgan wanted for that album, and that's why it sounds that way. It's dreamy, washed over, drowning sort of music, which is just fucking phenomenal. And Cowboy Destroy has that going for it, but it feels more analog. It feels more like a gut punch. And even the videos, whoever's doing their videos, if you go to their YouTube channel, fucking, first of all, subscribe and follow them. Secondly, whoever's doing their videos, they've got a great imagination. But the ones where there's one where they built a skateboard out of both a bass and a normal guitar, and just things like that. The choices they make cinematography wise are very rough cut, handheld documentary style, which is right up my alley. It's also the saturation in the way they do it. It looks like older film stock, like almost home movie style sort of things, but you can tell it's still modern equipment. It's still done very well. And there's been few times that I get that same feeling that I had when I heard CCR for the first time. And this band kind of like hit me, and I was like, oh shit. And it's made me really happy, because more and more as I've gotten older, I'm going back and thinking about bands and how I discovered them and what I really loved about them and how their music has, proliferated over the years and changed in its meaning. And this is a band that I think that is forever, how long they're around, I hope to keep witnessing them making good music. But it's definitely chill vibe music. It's great driving music. It's great skating music. It's great music just to fucking have playing when you're just playing an RPG, just like an old school one, or you're playing Ninja Gaiden or some shit. It is right up that alley, and I cannot recommend it enough. It just fucking, do yourself a favor and click that link below after you're done watching this. You'll be really happy you did. And I'm hoping, I noticed on their website and that they had a t-shirt for sale, but I don't know if they're out or not. I hope they re-released it. The graphic design they did on the logo was fucking tight as shit. I was like, this is fire. I need one of these in my life. But they only did 25 of them, and I'm like, do you have anything that comes in like a large 2X, 3X size? Because I would fucking buy that in a heartbeat. Yeah, man. I don't know. Aside from that, everything else has been just peachy, just fine. And oh my God, I've been deleting. So this is a weird thing. I'm going to end on this one. I think my phone is doing it right now as we're speaking. So I have the 256 gig model of an iPhone, the 11. And that's not a flex. I'm just, so you guys understand this story. I filled it up. And I was like, oh shit. Because especially doing these videos, right? And even then, I'm only filming this in 1280 normal HD, and at 30 frames per second. If it would let me do 24, I would absolutely do it. But for some reason, the setting's not letting me do that. And I did it for two reasons. One, this isn't a high-end production where I'm showing a bunch of stuff that is instructional too. These run 29 to 30 minutes sometimes, or 29 to 45 minutes. I don't know, 1 minute or more. Because of that, just the time to re-edit these, put them out there, and upload them takes a long time. And my very first one, I was an idiot. I did it in 4K, and I'm like, what was I thinking? That was the dumbest thing I could have done. So, because it's just, I didn't have the time to really, it was harder to edit. It was doing all this, because I edit on my phone, and it just took a lot longer to get it uploaded. I literally took a day and a half to do it, and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is going to be terrible. So, it just wasn't a good thing. And I've stored all the masters of these things in this raw element, not the version that's stored on YouTube. So I take this, I edit down whatever I do from this video, add in transitions, effects, overlays, whatever. And then that version that I export out of Video Leap, I'm keeping in this very raw file that I'm recording right now gets thrown away. They're still large files. The finished ones are still huge. And so it was eating up my phone, and I went in to delete, and I had over 5,000 items in there. And I'm like, selecting forever. There's got to be a shortcut to select. There has to be. And so just like holding my finger down the corner, selecting everything, hit delete, send it to the trash, went into trash. You have to select everything again, but I realized, oh, there's a couple here I don't want to have. Accidentally hit recover. The shit went back. I'm like, oh my God, that took forever. So then I finally get it back in there, and I've deleted the majority of what I think I had previously. Hopefully I didn't fuck anything up, because there's some that still hasn't backed up to iCloud. Anyway, the wonders of modern technology and the struggles. So I get all that shit done, and I expected to see my phone going, hey, you've got a bunch of memory back. Clearly I do, because I was able to record this thing. But when I went in there, it was still showing that it was full. And I watched, I'm like, what's happened? So I thought, oh, like turn off the phone, and it'll... No, it's just slowly, even if you delete what would have been, I think I ended up deleting 200 gigs of videos and files and stuff that had already been backed up onto my other drives and via iCloud. It was just slowly going down. I was watching it but every like 3 to 5 minutes, I'd see it go from like, this number down to from 0.8 to like 0.5. And it was just taking, I was like, I've still got to get this video done. I've got to get some other stuff created. This is just getting ridiculous. My cat is trying to jump onto a chair. You guys are crazy. What are you doing? Here, hold on there. You want that chair? You can jump on the chair. She's trying to jump on this chair. Okay. I'll show you guys this chair in a later video. One of the best things that I love doing. Remember how I told you that I'm kind of a part-time junker? I am. There was a family that was living not too far from where my parents live in Warrensburg, and they threw out this great bar stool, and it had some defects and some stains on the wood, and I'm like, I don't really like that, but I had a fuckload of green paint, and because of course I do, and so I sanded everything down and then spray painted the shit out of it, added some more to it and everything. Oh, I guess she doesn't want to be in there. What was it not comfy enough? What was the deal, ma'am? What was the deal? A little bit of hair coming off me. A little bit of Luna fluff. Great. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And I will catch you in my next entry. And for those of you that have been kind enough to watch these things and everything else like that, again, I'm going to say it every single video. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. I genuinely appreciate those of you that are watching it. I don't get a lot of views, but that's okay. And surprisingly, the larger amount of people that seem to be watching this thing are coming from oh, come on, don't drink out of my water, are coming from that stimulus network that I belong to. I don't care. It's fine. It's fun. So, all right, guys. Catch you in the next entry. I guess he's got to do some shopping too. I mean, that's a hell of a recommendation for a brand.